The Admirals in One Piece are incredibly strong. They are among the most powerful characters in the story. So far, almost no Admiral has really taken any damage. So far, we know of 7 characters who had the title of Admiral at some point in the story. Today, we will take a look at the narrative problem with Admirals in the story of One Piece. But first, we need to take a look at the 7 characters that make up the Admirals in the story. 𝚲𝚙𝚎 is the first Admiral we meet in the story. He has faced the Straw Hat crew on Long Ring Longland, he froze Robin and Luffy and gave our heroes a huge defeat. Akainu made his debut in the story in the Ohara flashback of Robin. There, Sakazuki gave the order to sink some ships carrying civilians. According to Sakazuki, after all, the civilians could be transporting a scholar from Ohara. Next, we are introduced to Kizaru on the 𝚲𝚘𝚙𝚎 archipelago. After Luffy punched St. Charles in the face, an Admiral was sent to take care of the situation there. Kizaru made short work of the supernova, but also of the Straw Hat crew. With just a few pew pew pew. We then meet the next Admiral with Fujitora on Dressrosa. The Blind Admiral is first an antagonist in the arc. However, as the arc progresses, he also opposed Doflamingo and also becomes an ally during the Birdcage period. Fujitora became one of One Piece's greatest men of honor after apologizing to King Riku for the world government's sloppy work on the Shichibukai system. Something like that shouldn't happen again. In fact, Fujitora is pursuing the goal of abolishing the Shichibukai in One Piece. This goal was achieved during the Reverie arc through the joint efforts of King Cobra and King Riku. Fujitora, by the way, got a Navy base ban from Sakazuki. Until he delivers Luffy and Law to the new Fleet Admiral, he will not be allowed to enter any Navy base. Sakazuki really sounds like an angry father. It's nice that Fujitora just discreetly ignores him. Finally, we have Green Bull. We get to know him as a silhouette in the Reverie arc. He makes his debut after the war on Onigashima. During the second festival, he tries to attack the capital to capture Luffy for Sakazuki. However, through the efforts of Momo, Yamato, the Red Scabbards, and a little help from Shanks' Conqueror Saki, they were able to drive the Admiral out of Wano. Besides these 5 well-known Admirals, Sengoku and also Kong were once Admirals of the Navy. This is because in order to become a Fleet Admiral of the Navy, you must have the title of Admiral beforehand. We may see the 2 characters as Admiral and Fleet Admiral in the God Valley flashback. In One Piece, the concept of justice plays a crucial role for the Admirals. However, it is not only the Admirals in One Piece who make use of this theme. One of the most important speeches in all of One Piece is dedicated to the concept of justice. On Marineford, Doflamingo talks about the concept of justice in a very mocking way. Pirates are evil, the Navy is just. All of that takes on a whole new face now. Kids who don't know peace and kids who don't know war have different values. The one who is at the top determines what is good and evil. At this moment, this very place is neutral. Justice prevails, you say? Of course it is. The winner becomes justice. Each Admiral in One Piece has its own form of justice. This justice form represents the Admiral's moral compass, and these forms of justice were explored in some detail by Oda and the SBS for the 64th manga volume. Probably the best known form of justice in One Piece is absolute justice. This very radical form of justice is a kind of philosophy or motto followed by many Marine members. Absolute justice is about doing everything possible to wipe out the world of evil. Evil, of course, is in the eye of the beholder. In the case of the Navy, the pirates and revolutionaries are the absolute evil here, and they are to be wiped out by any means necessary. The world government in One Piece is a great advocate of absolute justice. They also see to it that such a form of justice is carried out by various high-ranking characters in the Navy. Sakazuki but also Onigumu are very prominent examples here. In One Piece, in addition to absolute justice, there are also many characters who have defined their own form of justice for themselves. For example, Aokiji does lazy justice. This form of justice ensures that he lets some crimes and pirates escape, like in the case of the Straw Hat crew. According to Oda in the past, Aokiji did not have lazy justice but burning justice as his moral compass. What exactly is meant by that was not elaborated out in the SBS. However, after the incident on Ohara, Aokiji reconsidered his opinion regarding his form of justice and discovered lazy justice for himself. Kizaru has neutral justice. This form of justice is probably described in his carefree manner. Kizaru can be super relaxed in one moment and then deadly in the next. For example, on Sabaody he was chatting casually with a supernova, and then in the next moment he was attacking Basil Hawkins. We see something similar on Marineford with Ben Beckman. There Kizaru also first pretended to be afraid of Beckman, only to then start attack on the polar tank. Akainu has thorough justice according to Oda. Not absolute justice as many assume, here's where I'm actually a bit confused. Is thorough justice perhaps simply a subspecies of part of absolute justice? Because as far as we get to see in the story, Akainu has determined absolute justice for himself. Also Kuzan says in Robin's flashback at the sinking of Ohara and the destruction of a civilian ship that absolute justice can drive someone insane. This thorough justice, according to Oda, pursues the goal of eradicating all evil in the world. This form of justice is the most radical form of justice we have encountered in the story so far. Even innocent people are not spared here. Fujitora has humane justice, according to Oda. This form of justice, like the other forms of justice, fits the character of this admiral very well. Fujitora is very caring and helpful towards innocent characters. He's also not afraid to give the corrupt world government, aka his employees, the middle finger. Fujitora does what is right. This form of justice forms one of the most desirable forms of justice in the story. Fujitora's heart is definitely in the right place. As opposed to the justice from the next admiral. Green Bull, aka Aramaki, has not yet received a confirmed justice form in the story. At the time of his reveal, unfortunately, there was no info about Aramaki in an SPS and no info on a Vivre card. So with Aramaki we can only make assumptions about his justice form. Similar to Sakazuki, Aramaki has a very radical form of justice. Namely, Aramaki believes that a state that does not belong to the world government would have no right to exist. Either you become a part of the world government or you are extinguished. Let's see how Oda will define Aramaki's form of justice in the future. Maybe it will just be the thorough justice light. After all, Aramaki is an incredibly big Sakazuki fanboy. Sengoku also has his own form of justice. According to Oda, the former fleet admiral pursues reigning justice. This form of justice probably refers more to his former position as a fleet admiral. This form of justice is still somewhat ill-defined. Indeed, we do not know what morals are included in this form of justice. Sengoku has a somewhat more complex understanding of morality. He raised Rocinante next Tenryubitu, but also Diaz Drake, the son of a pirate, as his children, much like Garp did with Ace. So there's more to the former fleet admiral than what we currently know. Perhaps in the further course of the story this justice form of Sengoku will be explained in more detail. In addition to the forms of justice of the admirals, there's also, for example, the cleansing justice of Vice Admiral Tsuru. Using the skills of her Wushu Wushu no Mi, Tsuri aims to wash the evil from the hearts of her opponents. Rob Lucci, an agent of the CP0, also has his own form of justice. Dark justice refers to the fact that Rob Lucci is willing to get his hands dirty to further the agenda of the world government. He is willing to murder innocent hostages to accomplish his mission. Tashigi and Smoker also have their own form of justice. For example, Smoker told Tashigi in the Alabasta arc to follow her own form of justice. This personal justice of Tashigi then manifested itself in helping the Straw Hat crew during the civil war on Alabasta. All these concepts of justice of the Navy, and especially of the Admirals, will play a very central role in the further course of the story. But there's a problem with justice. As Doflamingo has already correctly said, the winner of a conflict or a war defines the form of justice. If we now take this further, we notice that in the world of One Piece, there's a certain group that has extremely benefited from this definition of justice, namely the Tenryubitu and the world government. Fitting that Doflamingo in X Tenryubitu has recognized exactly this fundamental problem. The 20 kingdoms that founded the world government over 800 years ago define the current form of justice in the story. The winner becomes justice. Joy Boy, the ancient kingdom, and their allies were defeated by the 20 kingdoms in the past and erased from history. Now most of Joy Boy's former allies live in isolation or hiding, such as Fishman Island, Zou, Wano Kuni, and probably Elbaf. The victor becomes justice, a cycle that can't necessarily be broken, because even if our heroes abolish the Tenryubitu in the course of the story and the new form of justice serves as the new standard, Doflamingo's quote remains relevant. Then too, in this case the victor becomes justice, the winner gets to determine the new rules. In this case, this would be our heroes in the story. Oda gave the Navy Admirals the different forms of justice so that they could be in conflict with Luffy. Luffy is a pirate, and Luffy pursues his own form of justice. He wants other people to enjoy the same freedom as he does. The Admiral's form of justice are said to be in conflict with Luffy's own morality and idea of justice. Oda does not simply build conflict between Luffy and the antagonists randomly. the basis for an important conflict between Luffy and an antagonist is based on the fact that Luffy's values clash with his antagonist's values. Luffy represents an ideal of freedom, dreams and friendship in the story. Every one of us would like to have a Luffy as a friend. The antagonists in the story represent an antithesis to Luffy's values. The only exception here is Katakuri, who has a very similar moral understanding to Luffy. Luffy vs Katakuri, the similarity of both fighting to protect their nakama is the backbone of the fight. Luffy wants to protect his crew and Katakuri is just defending his family. In fact, in the eyes of the Navy and the Admirals, it's very similar. Luffy is evil in the eyes of the Navy, he's a pirate. In their eyes, it absolutely doesn't matter that Luffy does so much good. He is and remains a pirate, and pirates are evil. If we now look again on the Admirals in One Piece, we notice that each Admiral represents a form of justice, like I already told in the video. Each of the Admirals represent a certain ideal or extreme in the world of One Piece. Now, if we take these concepts further, we quickly see which forms of justice will continue to endure and which will not. I'm just going to say that absolute justice, in the form that we currently see it in the story, is not going to be done at the end of the story. It will probably continue to exist somehow, but I don't think that absolute justice will be tolerated by the New World government without Tenryubitu. Absolute justice led to the downfall of the ancient kingdom, but it also led to the downfall of Ohara. Such a form of justice simply must not be allowed to continue. As Kuzan has already correctly observed, when absolute justice is continuing, someone eventually goes insane. That means that Sakazuki and Aramaki will not remain in their position in the further course of the story. They are great representatives of absolute justice, they are willing to do anything to wipe out pirates. In the Navy, there will be a strong rethinking about piracy at the end of the story. Pirate is just not the same as a pirate. In the one-shot manga Romance Dawn, Oda still divided pirates into two different categories. There were the Peacemain and the Morganiers. The Peacemain are pirates who go on adventures and are not interested in fighting other pirates for treasure. For Peacemain, their crew is their greatest treasure. This description of the Peacemain can be applied to pirate crews like the Straw Hat crew and the Red Hair pirate crew. The Morganiers fight for treasure and for their personal ambitions. They are greedy, they love to fight, they are happy on inflicting pain and suffering to others. Many pirates that Luffy meets during his adventure in One Piece can be put into this Morganier category of pirates. In One Piece, these two terms do not appear in the story, however, since Romance Dawn serves as the basis for the story of One Piece, Oda had originally planned these two pirate categories in the story. In the end, however, they were not implemented. Perhaps these two categories will become relevant again at the end of the story. At least Oda incorporated some aspects from the Romance Dawn one-shot into the story, like the design of Garp or the concept of devil fruits. Also in Romance Dawn, Luffy has a grandfather who looks like Garp, and he has the powers of the Gomu Gomu no Mi. This character of Garp and the devil fruit concept was then adopted for the story of One Piece. In the New World, Oda told us some stories of how pirates and marines fought together. With Smoker and Luffy on Punk Hazard, then Roger and Garp back in the day on God Valley, Drake and Luffy on Onigashima, and possibly in the future Luffy and Kobe against Blackbeard. This pirate-navy alliances will shape the endgame of One Piece for a new understanding of piracy. At the end of One Piece, we will get to see a new form of justice. I don't assume that every admiral with a radical form of justice will die in One Piece. There will be new, younger Navy members joining the ranks of the Admirals and Fleet Admiral. Drake, Kobe, Helmeppo, but also Smoker and Tashigi are possible candidates. Kobe in particular will play a very central role here. Two pirates from the East Blue were responsible for Kobe joining the Navy. Kobe has two of the most dangerous pirates in the New World as his buddies. So Kobe's understanding of piracy is different from other Marine soldiers. Kobe, a boy who wants to join the Navy, is the first friend Luffy makes during his adventure. This is not a decision Oda will have made randomly. This fateful meeting and relationship of these two East Blue boys will change the structure of the Navy, but also of piracy in the future. I strongly expect that the New World government and the new Navy that comes with it will not treat all pirates the same. It will not look at labels, but it will evaluate according to the deeds of the person. Currently in the world of One Piece, a pirate can do something good and be prosecuted for it. A Marine soldier can commit genocide and face no consequences, simply because of their position in that world. At the end of the story, I think it won't be that way. The justice form of Dragon and the revolutionaries could also play a role here, because Dragon will certainly pursue his own form of justice. After all, he's waging war against the world government and thus indirectly against the Navy. There's also the theory that Dragon himself was once a member of the Navy or the Cypher Pole and thus got to know the corrupt and radical ideals of justice of the Navy and the world government. He then actively decided against these forms of justice. Of course, this is all speculation. Dragon is also likely to play a role in the Great Justice restructuring. Especially in well-written stories with a complex fictional world, the core values at the beginning of the story are not the same values at the end of the story. Absolute justice in One Piece has an expiring timer, and so do the characters that represent those values, like a Sakazuki, a Aramaki, or even the Gorosei. If you liked this video, feel free to check out this video about all the Marine Admirals in One Piece next. What is your opinion on this topic? Feel free to let me know in the comments. See you in the next one. Take care.